it's all about honesty with Vic Fangio. And I like this. So first off, you're not going to say what you said about Bryce Huff if you're not honest. Because it's not like you're going to be looking to piss off the people that just hired you and the people that have just been – yeah, exactly. And who paid them. And the people that have apparently wanted to hire you a year ago. So we're like, damn, son, that is something there, Vic Fangio. Good for you.
Let's see if we can bring up Marc now. Hey, Farzi, how you doing, brother?
There we go. What's happening?
How you doing, brother?
I'm doing fantastic, my friend. I'm doing fantastic. What's going on?
Marc, I just brought an interesting point up here that when people talk about culture of the Eagles, nobody in that coaching staff has been in that building longer than 3 years except for Stoutland, and yet everybody in the front office and analytics department have been in the building 20-plus years. That is where your culture is, right, if you're talking Eagle culture, not with the coaching staff.
Yeah, it everything with this team, it still baffles me that some people put the locker room before the front office in terms of like order of evolution, in terms of where everything, the epicenter of the Philadelphia Eagles, the heartbeat of the Philadelphia Eagles is in the front office. Everything stems nowadays from Jeffrey Lurie to Howie Roseman and then to the locker room. So that's where everything begins. I know a lot of people make fun of Howie Roseman meddling in everyday operations, game day operations, Jeffrey Lurie meddling more than he ever has with the Eagles and all that. But to me, that's the way it's been for a long time, especially, and I know his name is back in the news now for unfortunate reasons, but that's Chip Kelly. Ever since Chip Kelly was here, that let Jeffrey Lurie know, I can't have a babysitter anymore. I have to be a hovering parent. I have to be watching this team all the time, no matter what. So yeah, everything starts upstairs. That doesn't surprise me at all.
Marc, help me out on something. We'll move on from it. I'm not going to belabor that because all of a sudden I'll get inundated with Deshaun Jackson and Chip Kelly shit. And I'm going like, why? What's going on? I mean, and I did not realize that there were articles written and he was calling him a gangster. And he was, I mean, the worst thing you could possibly do to any player, let alone a black player, is to do that and label somebody that. To me, it's ultimately racist. You have a dynamic in the locker room where you've got to treat everybody equally. Was it that over the top subversive that he was talking to certain players? I mean, Marc, is this just coming out now or was that going on at the time?
If I remember correctly, I want to say it was Brandon Boykin, of all players, that came out and we're talking about how Chip Kelly just didn't know. It was after he left. He went to Pittsburgh and he put out these allegations about Chip Kelly. And I don't believe they're necessarily racial undertones as much as they were racial statements. Yeah. Just saying that he was very uncomfortable, just did not know how to relate to black players on the team. And I remember one specific story came out with Chip Kelly not saying hi to players in a locker room. And I remember thinking that to me just sounds like an ass. It doesn't necessarily sound like a racist guy, but it sounds like an ass. The guy doesn't have any personal skills. And I always go back to what Jeffrey Lurie said after he fired Chip Kelly, which was emotional intelligence. Open your heart. And I'm like, are we still talking about football or are we talking about a daycare center? What's going on here? So that was something that came out with Chip Kelly back then. When the story came out around Deshaun Jackson, me and pretty much every other Philadelphia media member were thinking to themselves, all right, sooner or later, we're going to see in the next couple weeks, we're going to see Deshaun Jackson do the perp walk where he goes over and, he does a perp walk. And then Chip Kelly would be almost justified. But the story essentially was Deshaun Jackson knew gang members. I think a lot of players know or have met or have been at the same party or social setting with gang members. And look, some of those people that they're associated with have done horrible things. That doesn't mean that Deshaun Jackson has done horrible things. And we were all waiting for that moment where, oh, this is why Chip let him go. And no, instead, we were just robbed of two Philadelphia Eagle generational talents in both Deshaun Jackson and LaShawn McCoy. And still to this day, it makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. But it's not the first time this story came out. It's the first time Deshaun Jackson and LaShawn McCoy were as open and as in detail, in depth with all the goings on of the Chip Kelly era. But no, it's not something new by any means.
If I told somebody that I've had lunch at the White House and I also had a drink at the Ravenite Social Club, you'd look at me and go like this. Really? I go, well, football players get invited to the craziest places you would ever imagine, and you run in to every sort of dude. I mean, you could meet a statesman. You can also meet a gang member, and I have. I mean, it's just, it's kind of the aura of playing football. You run in to all these people. Dude, Luther Campbell's one of my best friends. You know, people will go, well, this guy here was always arrested. And you're like, well, I love the guy. I mean, Uncle Luke is part of the Miami program. I mean, he had gangster kids that hung around with him. Does that mean that I'm a gangster? No. So, I mean, look, I didn't know it was that detailed like that, though. And to me, you just got to be careful as a coach. And to me, it just comes off of this. And you tell me, Chip Kelly just had shitty bedside manner.
I agree. When the story came out about it, like he didn't know how to say hi to people, I'm like, oh, so he's just an ass. Like he's okay. Because it would, like, if you were a racist person, I doubt the place you would want to be is around in a locker room. I don't think that makes any sense. So I actually went up to Brandon Boykin when he went to the Steelers, and I was at the Hall of Fame game, and I went up to him and I said, you recently made these comments about Chip Kelly. Care to explain it any further? And I had the recorder out and everything, and he just went, and walked away. And I'm like, well, you can't just throw this out there. Like, what the hell, man? And then he didn't want to comment further on it. And by then, again, he had moved on from the Eagles. But just for the record, so what was the Ravenite like there, Sills?
Interesting.
I was half kidding. Oh my goodness.
Wait. I'll tell you this though. You would appreciate it because they served a lot of cappuccino. Okay? You'd have bet a big hit at this place because cappuccino, it made the hair on the back of your neck in this old place stand up there. Okay? So, I mean, hey, what do you need? You want a sandwich? You want a sandwich? No, I'm going to get out of here.
You didn't have to go upstairs. You didn't have to go upstairs, did you?
Any more trouble than I already think I'm in. So let me get out of here. My friend takes me in. I'll tell you at another day.
There are people Googling Ravenite as we speak.
Guy put on a good fireworks there during 4th of July. I won't lie to that, man. It was one of the better 4th of July that they put on. So when you guys are Google, easy, Yale. All right, we move on here.
Okay, there you go.
Did you happen to see the coordinator press conferences today? And I got to tell you, Mark, for me, my takeaway was, wow. I wrote this down on them too. I said, it exuded confidence. You know what? I don't know on May 9th what it's going to look like in September 6th. I have no idea. But I'll tell you what. You heard them both talking. I heard the words competing. I heard the words assimilating. I heard the words meshing systems and terminology. There was a lot of detail kind of talk, a little bit maybe in the weeds more than what people wanted to hear. But I don't know. It just sounded professional.
Yeah, the only thing I took with a grain of salt was the Kellen Moore line about when he was asked about the meshing of the systems and where does the terminology come from and where the play calls come from, and he did say it comes from all three places that he's coached in, and he's been now an offensive coordinator, including the Philadelphia Eagles. So it's a meshing of all that. He echoed the same words as Nick Sirianni did at the owners' meetings in Orlando a couple of weeks ago. So that wasn't that big of a surprise because I do default to the what is he gonna say? He's not gonna say like, wait, who Nick who? You're
not looking to break any news here.
Yeah. I'm not. I haven't met this Nick Sirianni fellow yet, so I wasn't exactly expecting him to come out with that. But just everything you've heard about him, everything you've seen about him, and other interviews he's done, other press conferences, Kellen Moore, it did exactly that. Very impressive, very bright, great football mind. You can pick up all that stuff, listen to him. But offensively speaking, the biggest thing for me this offseason was nothing he said. And as you say, you're not going to know until the season really starts, until the veterans are in there more regularly. But the read option being a part of the offense, the zone read being a part of the offense, the Eagle, I don't know if I've ever been more excited for a mundane B-roll practice clip more so than I was seeing Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley at the NovaCare complex practicing the read option and practicing that mesh point.
I agree here. I do. Let me throw this at you here. What was your takeaway, Mark, when it came to what Kenny Gainwell said about the culture in the building. And when he was asked on a show the other day about what was the issue at the end of the season, his comment was more this. It came up here and he goes, there was a disconnect between what was going on in the locker room. He kind of pointed it to the front office and then I think kind of hedged his bet and didn't want to throw the coaching staff into it. But what was your takeaway from what Gainwell said?
Nick Sirianni. If you had to name the disconnect, it was Nick Sirianni in the specific moment. And you and I have talked about this plenty of times. And I know on my show I've referenced this because I thought it was so impactful in the season. The same week that A.J. Brown finally addressed the media and all that, a day or two later, Hassan Reddick addressed the media. But because there was already, the sexy the name of A.J. Brown, the position, and everything he said, he finally unloaded. Because he spoke, that buried the other lead that should have been that week, which is Hassan Reddick saying, quote unquote, the higher-ups wanted to make the decision of moving on from Sean Desai to Matt Patricia. And that's what they did, and that's that. Not the coach, not Nick Sirianni, the higher-ups, the front office. So for me, you've neutered your head coach at that point. Everyone's had a job where they understand that the guy in front of them is, he might be the boss, but he's not the big boss that can fire you. So you just kind of go, yeah, whatever. All right, fine. And then the big boss comes in this case, it's Howie Roseman or it's Jeffrey Lurie. And that's the person that's really in charge. If you're an NFL coach, everyone around you has to know that you are in charge. Even if you're not the person making final say on personnel decisions, people have to look at you like, oh, this guy's in charge. When the Eagles moved on from Sean Desai to Matt Patricia, that made Nick Sirianni look like a fool to the rest of that locker room. So when you talk about a disconnect, it's not that crazy to think that at 10-3 or 10-1 at one point in the season, it's not that crazy to think that all of a sudden the front office decided to flex after 2 losses and dropping to 10-3 on the season, that they made the panic decision of abruptly changing their defensive coordinator, at least who had the power at defensive coordinator to call plays. And the rest of the locker room looked around and went, wait, what are we even doing here? Hold on a second. If the guy's not here making a decision, then what are we doing?
But Mark, here's my problem. Why is it so important for the front office to have this impression or this look that the coach is the important people? When you look at, I just referenced, the front office never changes. The guy's been there 30 years. Mm-hmm. You've had coaches in and out the last 6 years in that organization. It's constant revolving door. Nobody in their right mind believes that the coaching staff, it's got to be the least safest job in all of that building at the NovaCare Center, being a coach for the Philadelphia Eagles. Any coach, because they look at themselves with their culture and what they do, but yet they'll sit there and try to tell you, well, Nick made the call on Desai. No, he didn't. You did. Mm-hmm. Nick made the call on drafting this guy. No, he didn't. You did. Nick made the call on this coaching being hired. Brian Johnson. No, he didn't. You did. Why is that so important to lie like that? It comes off, if you're a player in that locker room, Mark, it comes off like you're lying. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I don't trust you then. When shit goes sideways, you're not the guy I'm going to.
Mm-hmm.
That's why that team fell apart.
I think the disconnect came from the front office to the locker room, and the disconnect in the middle there is Nick Sirianni. I think the players like Nick Sirianni. I think the players respect Nick Sirianni. But once a move like that was done, it's like, hold on a second here. What is he? I hate to go back to the cliche question, but like, hold on, what are you doing here?
Anything to do with decision making, whether I respect you or not.
Mm-hmm. Right. One more thing. What my other takeaway from it was, so hold on a second. There's a disconnect. And now without Jason Kelce, without Fletcher Cox, it's going to be better. and a Jalen Hurts that's supposed to be stepping out a little bit more as a vocal leader. I'm not saying he's got to pick up pom-poms. I'm not saying he's got to flip over a table. I'm not saying he's going to really start chewing people out or anything like that. But without Jason Kelce and without Fletcher Cox, the disconnect is going to somehow improve. That is concerning. That's a little concerning there.
Tell me if you thought this was concerning. So Howard Eskin, Mr. Mouthpiece of the Eagles. Me and Angelo like to dub him. By the way, I kid him, man. But I'll tell you one thing. He was right about Embiid. And I'll say this to you. This is what he said about, he goes, I listened to the interview today. And he goes, I was talking to Jason Kelsey. Jason Kelsey used to say this, Jalen, the blitz is coming from the A gap. Be prepared. He would set the blocking formation. He would set the blocking protection. And he would turn to the quarterback and go, hey, this is where the blitz is coming from, internal. He still couldn't pick it up. I mean, we're now going on year 4 starting. How in the world is that going to improve with a more inexperienced center? Now you have another coordinator coming in. You don't have continuity yet. You don't even know what the terminology means yet. If you're Jalen, you're trying to work through that right now. I mean, I don't know how concerning that is when you're looking at RPO gave him a target to throw to. When if you're asking him to be a progression reader, he struggles with blitz pickup. He struggles with reading defenses. Are you concerned with this going into year 4?
Absolutely. It's one of those things I have confidence in terms of Cam Jurgens being a good center. I don't know yet what it's going to look like between Jalen Hurts and Cam Jurgens and shifting that protection and setting the blocking scheme. I love the read option for a guy like Jalen Hurts. I mean, one of the things we always talked about, 2 totally different skill sets, obviously, when we talk about quarterbacks, but in terms of what it did so well for Nick Foles, because Nick Foles, I mean, there's a reason why he did so well here in Philadelphia. He ran more read option here than he ever did anywhere else. And that was the type of quarterback he had to be. Let's cut the field in half. Let's identify 1, maybe 2 targets. And if it's not there, check down, and that's that. Jalen Hurts, instead of checking down, he just runs. But it allows Jalen Hurts to cut the field in half, which means his progressions are faster than any other sport, any other spot. And he can make a play very quickly in that regard. That's why they have to incorporate it. But to see a quarterback almost have to default to that too often would almost be very similar to seeing so many tight end screens and bubble screens. Again, you don't want to go back to that. And people don't realize how much of that is Jalen Hurts. All that wasn't Brian Johnson. A lot of that was Jalen Hurts. Shane Steichen, when he was here, he talked about it. Nick Sirianni has talked about it. Jalen has talked about it. If you remember 2 years ago, the year they go to the Super Bowl, there was a game they played in Arizona against the Cardinals. And they came back and they won that game. And I think that was Cameron Dicker with the game-winning field goal in that game. Throughout that game, you saw bubble screen, tight end screen, bubble screen, tight end screen. And afterwards, it came out through Jalen's own admission that was more or less his own comfort play. It's easy for him to just turn, fire, and that's his job's done. But if Cam Jurgens is all of a sudden not on the same page as Jalen Hurts, or Jalen Hurts isn't on the same page as Cam Jurgens, then you're going to be seeing more of the bubble screens. You're going to be seeing more of the read option. You're going to see more of a predictable offense again. So it all comes back to the quarterback. And look, I'm not setting the table for an excuse during the season because, as you and I have pointed out many times over, there are no excuses this year. You have these weapons. You have that experience as an offensive coordinator and play caller, not just an OC, but a play caller. There's no excuses whatsoever. I don't want to hear in year 4 you're not able to break down what the defense is doing in front of you.
I'll say this to you too, man. I mean, everyone seemingly is evolving in that offense. Mulata, Devontae. 3,000 yards with AJ, Landon. The only person that's not evolving is the quarterback. He's not evolving. I mean, there have been 3 separate years, and if the coaching was so bad, how come everyone else is evolving in their offense and their game's getting better? They're getting paid. I mean, Mark, doesn't it get to a point when you're looking at the 10 other guys? Do you think Devontae Smith has evolved more in his game than what Hurts has?
Well, the thing with Hurts is that he had such I'll even refer to it as the Hurtsian leap when you talk about the year 1 as a starter to year 2. We just went through the similar thing in basketball. We see these Maxian leaps with Tyrese Maxey. It just keep on getting better. In baseball, Alec Boehm just keeps on getting better. Jalen Hurts got from, I don't know if this is the guy, to holy Lord, this is totally the guy, to then this past year, all right, this coaching kind of sucked, but he wasn't so great either. I mean, you don't have to have a great coach to realize you shouldn't bomb it down the field up 4 with 8 minutes to go against the Seattle Seahawks, in the 4th quarter. Like, that's not good. And then you have to throw that desperation pass to A.J. Brown at the end, and then that gets intercepted. But there's just common sense football that you didn't see from Jalen Hurts last year. And that's not coaching, that's the player. I will put it on like this, though. If you have this kind of talent like you're having going into the season. You have an even better running back in Saquon Barkley. And you have some questions at offensive line, but nothing that should be too stifling to this offense. It's all going to fall on the quarterback. And I have no doubt in my mind the Eagles are looking at that same thing, because as great as Howie is at organizing those, creating the cap space and organizing the contracts and the drafts as of late, he always builds in that clause. There's no better example than Carson Wentz. Now you see me, now you don't. And now you see me in Indianapolis all of a sudden. So this is a huge year for Jalen Hurts. He has to prove that last year with the turnovers especially, that was an anomaly. And he has to prove that he can go out there and do everything he's supposed to do and everything the expectations say he should do with this offense in front of him.
Two last questions for you here, Mark. When I heard Vic say this, when he was asked the questions about Bryce Huff, he goes, the player didn't really, start when he was in New York, and he was more of a situational player. So what we'll do is we'll situationally see where it best fits to put him in a game. And I went like this. You paid $18 million for a situational guy who you're going to bring in. Now, maybe that was part of the rub that Vic said this to Hassan. You're not a 3-down guy. We're going to situationally play you. And maybe Reddick went, no, I'm a 3-down guy. And I like to see when Robert Saleh gets him, because notice this, there's no extension up there for him.
I was just going to say, you and we smelled that from the beginning.
Extension, right? So they may play him the same way they played Huff and play him in that situational situation. So I thought that was a little bit of a conflict between the front office and the way Vic doesn't see that player the same way the front office guys. His words were, hey, he really didn't play 3-down there in New York. He's more of a backup guy and a situational guy. And that's the first thing that hit me when you're a pro is, well, he makes $18 million. He's the third highest paid guy on that defense.
Yeah.
Okay. And you're looking, didn't you catch that? It was like a little bit with that. That was a different look in how they see him, or he sees him.
There were two things that made me go, huh? Well, actually three, if you include that he still eats at the stadium, at the bar around the corner from the stadium, the Palladium. I like that. The other thing, and I forgot he was a coach with the Stars, the Philadelphia and Baltimore Stars. Yeah, he's there with Mora. Exactly. And Sean Landeta was playing for the team. All right, so that's crazy. So that jumped out. The other thing was you never hear. It's all about honesty with Vic Fangio, and I like this. So first off, you're not going to say what you said about Bryce Huff if you're not honest. Because it's not like you're going to be looking to piss off the people that just hired you and the people that have just been. Yeah, exactly. And who paid him, and the people that have apparently wanted to hire you a year ago. So we're like, damn, son, that is something there, Vic Fangio. Good for you. And then the other thing was, you never hear anyone come out and say that, especially the older coaches, the set in their ways coaches, especially a coach like Vic Fangio, who's got his own scheme named after him now. But what's it take to run your offense at a high level? And Vic Fangio goes, good players. I was like, oh, all right. So that made me think, oh, look, it's not just look at my scheme and how brilliant it is. Everyone can have success in my scheme because I'm brilliant. No, it's like, I need good players. So if you want to be a good player and you want to perform at a high level, you got to do it in this scheme because it'll benefit the skill set that you already have. But when it comes to a guy like Bryce Huff, I found it fascinating, absolutely fascinating, that the front office went out of their way after they had already hired Vic Fangio to pay $51 million over 3 years to a guy that just got the biggest promotion of his life. And that's what it is. At least I thought it was going to be the biggest promotion of his life. Just because he got paid more doesn't make it a promotion. Promotion means he's playing 70, 75% of the snaps, like a guy like Hassan Reddick did. To see that he's only, well, possibly after that answer from Vic Fangio, going to stick to about 41% of the snaps. Are you serious? What? Huh? How does that make any sense to spend that kind of money for a guy that's going to play less? And as of right now, and play on the same contract he would have been playing for you here in Philadelphia and at a higher level.
I still, it blows my mind that you wouldn't want him to play like you made Javon Hargrave play on that final year of his deal.
Yeah,
and make him play. He's not going to hold out, dude. He's been waived 2 times prior to that. Yeah. He's not sitting out, and you could have had him for the same money. It's just still, the meltdown of 1-6 and that move still very eagle-ish. They don't want to answer the question here. I want to throw.
He also, real quick, he also said it was Jalen Carter's going into his third year. And obviously that's not true.
He doesn't know the personnel. What I came away with, Mark, he doesn't know the personnel yet. I mean, he doesn't know the personnel. And he still getting, because he even actually dressed and said, hey, getting to know the personnel is going to be an issue. And somebody actually asked a brilliant question. They went, these guys have had 4 coordinators in 3 years. Is that a challenge to try to mesh and to try to because if you think about it, if you've been there 3 years, you've been told 4 different things to do. And one time in the same year, you were told 2 different things to do. If people think that's going to be an easy transition and seamless, I think your expectations are way over the top here with this.
And one more thing, kind of, it's not a positive thought. And I'm a pretty positive guy, except when it comes to sports. But when it comes to Vic Fangio, I hate how much of a big deal it is that he grew up around here. Because the guy is retirement age. You know, he's ready. He hopes this is his last coaching job. But
you think he should have been talking more about Florida?
But when he chooses your team because of geographical location above all else, I mean. That's like having, I don't know, let's just say someone live in your building that you might not be all that attracted to, but they'll do. You know what I'm saying?
Huh.
That doesn't sound, that worries me a little bit with Vic Fangio. It's like,
you thought he maybe used that as kind of like, hey, I grew up here, I know who you are. No, not really. You know, so what you thought it was a little cheesy?
It's not. I don't get the sense that he's pandering to me. Like, I'm from here. Everyone, right. I go to the Palladium. You know, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, I have a little bit of a concern that it's a cush retirement gig. That's where I'm going with that. That's a little bit of a later on in the season if things start going, hey, totally ass up and all that stuff is just terrible. I'll be like, look, this guy's got a sweet retirement gig where he's close to his family and he gets to milk one more year out of the NFL. That I'm not saying that's going to happen, but it's one of the dark places my mind went to. Because as much as I'll go down a positive angle and say, oh, Jalen Hurts could throw, for 35, 40 touchdown passes with this offense, all stuff. On the other side of it, I'm like, well, if this goes, why would it fail? Why would it fail? Well, it could fail for a number of reasons. And one of those reasons that maybe Vic Fangio is not the cure-all to this defense. Maybe the personnel that he might have still yet to meet a lot of them and understand their skill set. Oh, maybe this is just a cush retirement job for him. I'm not saying it is. It's not a report. That's just a concern I have. If you ask yourself the question, if the Eagles were to have a bad year, what's a reason they could have a bad year? Well, Vic Fangio ain't it. And maybe this was just a sweet early retirement gig to get one more year out of the NFL. That's in the deep, dark recesses of my mind. That's where I go when I think about how this could fail.
Wow, Vic. Wow, we got Farzy saying he's reaching for buttermilk and an oxygen mask.
Yeah. He's getting the brioche. He's getting the brioche ready. He's just, that's what he's doing.
The blue. So he knows what the blue bottle is. Good for him. All right. I want to point something out to you, and I want your takeaway on this here. So I wrote down the 10 highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL. Burrow, $55 million, appeared in the Super Bowl. Herbert, 52.5 is second. Lamar is 52. Hurts is 51, appeared in the Super Bowl. Wilson, 48.5, didn't have this contract when he won. He was on a rookie deal, actually. Murray, 46.1 is sixth. Deshaun Watson, 46 is seventh. Mahomes, eighth, is 45 and is one. Cousins, 45. Allen, 43. What's your takeaway with when you hear those quarterbacks and the 10 highest paid guys in the National Football League? Here's my takeaway. You're not given any kind of sense that if you pay these guys, they're going to win you a Super Bowl or even get you there.
Look at Kirk Cousins.
I mean, these things are failure. Hey, you paid a quarterback, dude. Your chances of getting to a Super Bowl are slim.
Yeah.
Am I reading that right?
Yeah, I think you're reading it right. And I think the glowing example of that is what the Rams did when they had Jared Goff and they went to a Super Bowl. And it was, well, you're a defensive guy, so you probably love that Super Bowl that they lost to the Patriots. Very low scoring. But
14-3.
Yeah. When it came to that year, I remember being out in LA and talking to some Rams writers out there, and it was like, oh, what everyone thinks the Rams are doing is exactly what the Rams are doing. The Rams are just right now, before they have to pay their quarterback anything, they know at the least, and this is what I thought was interesting, what they have at the least in a number 1 overall pick in Jared Goff was a good game manager. Okay. So basically that's a guy that's not going to lose you the game. He's certainly not going to take you for the game-winning drive either, okay? So he's just going to be good throughout the game. If you could stack your defense, which they did, if you could get great offensive weapons there, which they got, you could stockpile that for basically why you don't have to pay your quarterback anything. And that's one of the things the CBA did all those years ago. Because who was it? Was it Bradford as the last quarterback that got paid? Yeah. Bradford was the last quarterback. So after that, it was like, oh, wow, manageable money for the quarterback position. So let's spend elsewhere, and we'll get to a Super Bowl.
Guaranteed out of college at Oklahoma.
Holy Stromboli. That is insane. The Rams did that. Some other teams have tried to do it, but the Rams are the shining example where they just packed in everything else because they didn't have to pay their quarterback just yet. So, yeah, it doesn't necessarily mean that because you paid him, he are all of a sudden going to be great. The only example of that going the complete opposite way and the best way for the franchise is obvious, Patrick Mahomes.
Right, and get this, he's 8th. That just tells
he's
you.
He's 8th, and he restructured, 2 days after he signed the big deal?
Value deal. You know what I'm saying? It's the biggest value deal. Lastly, Cooper DeJean in 3 years will be what? A safety or a corner?
It's a really good question. I think he's going to be a safety.
Me too.
I think I wish I had a mountain of evidence to support why I think
he'd be horrible at corner, but I think you'd get more out of him.
Yeah,
nickel and at the safety position.
I think the need for the safety position with the Eagles is something that is ongoing.
Yep.
And I think in the future he has displayed the athleticism, the quickness to be able to go to that position and be versatile. Because when you're talking about an Eagle safety, I mean, even going back to Brian Dawkins, no matter who the defensive coordinator is, that safety position has to be versatile. And I think Cooper DeJean definitely fits that versatility requirement. And I think the Eagles, they just love rotating those corners. It's hard to get guys that will be there for as long as Lito and Sheldon or Bobby Taylor and Troy Vincent. So I think his future will be at the safety position.
Mark, I'm going to show you 2 pictures of Big Sills. I just thought about it here. And hey, Xander, show him first the football picture with Big Sills here at 338 pounds. If we could do that, and then if we can do that, I don't know if we can or not anymore. I don't know if you got rid of them. And the wrestling one, when I was wrestling in Europe and I was wrestling in over in Japan, I was 340 pounds. I just want to get, because I don't want people to get the sense of. By the way, I'm not trying to date you or anything. What I'm trying to do is just show you here. If Xander, are we able to do this here? I want to be able to do this. Okay. Here's Big Sills here, football picture. Okay, hands up high.
Nice.
Get this. Wait a minute. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 brothers. Okay. Hey, 5 brothers in that picture. You know, I'm Italian, so we're all there with that. There you go.
Naturally.
Right. Now so Farzy, the wrestling one, where Big Sills is the wrestler here. And this is me at, I think, at around 340 pounds. I think you're going to dig this one.
Boy, oh boy.
Look at the neck.
Oh my God! What neck? What? Are you kidding me?
Look at that thing.
That's amazing.
A water buffalo.
Are you at the late great Tony Saragusa? Were you guys from the same part of the boot? You guys could be brothers.
Oh yeah, of course. Dog, you know what do you think? Yeah, right. I'm not up there with the Frenchmen. I'm down there in the bottom with them guys. Are you kidding me?
Oh my God. That's great. That's awesome, man. That's awesome.
I don't know, man. Maybe because it's your paisan and all, man. I wouldn't show that to a white guy. Anyway, hey, hey, you do such a great job, dude. I mean, I got Barb all hot and going over here, man. She really loves to see those pictures. It's all good, Barb. I love it. Hey, Farzy, you do a great job.
Babs in the chat. Babs in the chat.
Yeah,
Barbara Carroll. Oh, Babs. Love Babs. Babs is great.
Dude, let me say this to you, man. I love that. I got more chicks that watch my show today than actually in my own home. I got a daughter and my wife. They don't give a shit anymore about me. I've been married 34 years. I'm dead, Mark. How long have you been married?
Coming up 6 years. 6 years this summer. Yeah.
I've never met a person I hated more or loved more in my life. I never. I gotta have dinner tonight, so I gotta be careful.
There you go. There you go.
Farzy, thank you, brother.
Hey, did you get the picture I sent you, the rigatoni and the meatballs and all that stuff?
No, I didn't. Did you just send it to me?
I sent it to you. I mean, whenever you booked me. Today was Teacher Appreciation Day.
Send it right now. I want to see it.
Oh yeah, today was Teacher Appreciation Day at my kid's school. So last year and this year, I made lunch. I made lunch for the teachers. It's nice.
Oh, here
nice
it is. My God, that's really. You made that. Look at Farzy. Oh.
That was great. That was great.
No. Oh, I could show it because there's no phone number. Okay, hang on.
Yeah. That's cool. That's fine. Yeah, I don't mind. Give me a call. There you go.
Marc,
that's rigatoni. Yeah, rigatoni and meatballs for the teachers.
Plates?
How many plates? That's there's 18 people, so of course I made 25. Yeah.
Hey, so like the sauce, does it run?
It's beautiful. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. It's nice. It's nice. I brought the bread in. Real quick, I'll just say this. My daughter, she's 4, and she came up to the kitchen while I was just laying everything. I made it at home, brought it in, and my daughter's just touching all the bread, And I was like, I said, Emmanuel, you stop touching the bread. That's the last piece of bread. And she has her hands down below the table, and she goes, "Okay, Daddy, my last piece of bread." I said, "That's your last piece," and she goes, "But I also have these 2." And she held up her hands, and she also had 2 big pieces of bread. And I was like, that's my girl.
I love that, man. Farzy. So I sat down. This was years ago. My wife's mom made some spaghetti, and I looked at my plate, and she goes, "Eat it." I go, I went like this. Look, there's water on the plate. I'm not eating anything with water on my fucking plate. It's not happening. Spaghetti sauce should never have condensation. You know what that comes from?
Yeah.
It comes from the fact that you didn't cook them long enough, and the tomatoes have too much water in it. You have to cook them you have to do it on the stove, and you have to get that. You'll see it come to the top.
Yeah.
Nobody in America, for all you white guys, no Italian would ever have a plate where sauce runs. It's just un-Italian, man.
Yeah. No, now I'm thinking about plating it. Yeah, no, it definitely did not run.
That's
it
good.
was
it's the tomatoes. Okay, because sometimes the tomatoes in the can will have too much condensation, and you have to cook them, and you got to keep an eye on that, because you know what? Of course, one day my wife made a pot. She's great. She makes an unbelievable sauce, man. I mean, she learned it from my grandmother. It was like a 300-year-old recipe we have. And she learned how to cook it, and she looked at the sauce, and it wasn't cooked long enough, so she threw it out. I was like, "Holy, come on!" Yeah, because when I'll tell you what, 1 in every 300 she doesn't get right. Farzy, don't let this fat dude tell you how to cook. That comes from part German. That comes from a part German Italian. Give me a break.
Yeah, that's only good things happen when those mix. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, hey.
Oh, what? Too soon? Too soon? What? Come on. Anyway.
And you know what? It's like a Kennedy joke. Is that too soon? I don't know. I mean, or Lincoln. I don't know.
Hey, I laughed through the entire Tom Brady roast, so I'm not easily offended.
He's not going to be a very good analyst. I'm going to tell you why. He had to go back and kiss Giselle's ass and apologize for all the shit they said about his old lady or his ex. And in my opinion, I think that's going to hurt him, because, hey, Barkley lost Jordan as his best friend. He had to be He had to be critiquing him as an owner running the Hornets, right? He wasn't very good at it. Same thing with Phil. You lose friends when you and I. Hey, how many friends have you and I lost over the years because when they were in sports, you and I were critical of them, and you said something, they came back and went, "Hey, man, I heard you talking shit on me like that." And I go, well, if I'm wrong, you let me know.
Yeah, right.
Goes, well, why don't you have my back? I go, well, I'm not going to have your back when you're wrong.
Right. Yeah.
I go, this is about my, and then he goes, oh, so my friendship. I go, Hoss, my career that I'm building here, I have to be truthful, because if I'm not truthful, they'll think I'm a bullshit artist. You at least have to be truthful.
A lot of ex-athletes and stuff that just jump in the seat shortly after playing. That's the toughest. It's the toughest part of their broadcast career, because they still have that personal relationship with the guys they're now critiquing, to put it like that. So yeah, it can be really tough. I've had my fair share of awkward conversations. That's for sure.
Have you ever done it? Have you ever done a show with an athlete?
Oh yeah, certainly. Okay. Yeah, Hugh Douglas, Hollis Thomas. Yeah.
Okay, so Hugh Douglas. Okay, so when you're doing a show with Hugh, and this was probably when Hugh first got into it, right?
Literally retired and then was in the booth. Yeah, or was in the studio. Yeah.
Was it awkward for him to be in the studio with you interviewing another athlete when you asked, or was it more for you awkward because you didn't want to insult your partner? Because that's why, Mark, this is why I don't do partner radio.
Right.
Because if I'm in the room, I may ask an asshole question, and I don't want your relationship to be affected by that when I'm asking something. I mean, did you feel that may have made you feel more uncomfortable having him in there because you had to be concerned about his relationship with that player?
Well, I was aware, just as I was when I worked with Trey Thomas for those years, I was aware that he still had relationships in the locker room. So I tried not to force him into those situations because then you could lose the guy. No, you have to rip this. But then it's like, oh, wait, why am I even here? I don't want to do this, But both of them really adjusted to it really naturally. Hollis Thomas was ready to go from the start. He couldn't wait to come in, man. Guns blazing. He's
quite a character.
Yeah. Oh, he's awesome. I love the guy. Love all three of them. And Hugh was interesting because he was probably the closest to playing. Yeah, he was definitely from playing to the microphone. It was like he was at Lehigh. He hurt his shoulder, and then he was in the booth next to us at WIP. So there was definitely a transition period for him. He was never afraid to pull punches or be honest. Same thing with Hollis. Same thing with Trey. Some of these guys still had relationships with those players, but the guy that probably took to it, other than Hollis, Trey, he oftentimes wouldn't even say guys' names because he didn't know them. He just knew the jersey number. No, but this is a huge compliment to him because he would break down film and just look at the jersey number like a coach would or an opponent would. So a lot of times he'd just look at it and be like, oh, that was Andre Dillard? No way. Like that kind of thing. So he'd break it down like that. But for some guys, it is very difficult. And in the first year or two, when the team looks really similar to the team that they left, that can be a really awkward thing. More often than not, and this was true for Hugh, this is true for Hollis, this is true for Trey, they say, hey, look, I got to be honest. I don't like it. Like, I know players that still won't rip Andy Reid because they love Andy Reid so much. But when it comes to players, they'll say, look, I got to be honest. That's not how we're coached. That's not how that play is coached. That's not how that tackle is coached. That's not how you do that. That's not the way you do things. So I give them credit for acknowledging that their new job required them to critique their old one. And those three guys jumped to it quickly. Yeah.
Here was my biggest transition problem. And it got me in trouble early in my career, even though, I was at this place for 15 years. I still had the locker room lingo. And the locker room lingo, it's not society lingo.
No.
And so when you say something, you can say anything in a locker room and no one's offended by it because each and every single one of you have a personal relationship in the building and you know where you're coming from. You make a comment or you make a statement about something or you use a word. Someone out there is going to go, holy shit, did you hear what he said? And I'm like, oh, crazy. And then get this. All my friends call me because I got canned in Tampa because I said something. All my friends call me and Daryl Talley calls me and goes like this. Hey, man. Hey, how you doing? I thought we were boys all these years. And I got Jonathan Vilma called me and ruined me laughing. And I'm going like, these people will never understand. So that was something that for me, I had to understand that, hey, the shit that's in the locker room, you can't really say because you live, you've practiced, you eat, you travel with these men. They know where you're coming from. The people you're talking to, you don't. So you got to always be cognizant of that. I guess it means you have to be more professional.
Their version of professional, the normal world's version of professional, the locker room professional is still professional. It's just professional in a different universe. But yeah, a lot of players have to adjust to that as well. Yeah, it's not an easy transition there either.
How about this with Brady? I'm going to tell you one last thing on the way out the door here. So I text Teddy Bruschi. He was there. He wasn't on. I don't think he was on stage.
He was no.
He was there though. And I said, were you in the room with Bob Kraft and Belichick walked in there? He goes, Amendola, Edelman, and Brady and a couple of the guys they were all in there. The Patriot guys were in there, and Robert Kraft had not told anybody. Nobody knew he was going to show up until like hours before the thing, because he didn't want to get killed. Jeff Ross threw that thing out there on the massages, so that's why Brady. It wasn't really scripted. He was supposed to be there. He showed up.
Wow.
No one knew. All of a sudden, Bob Kraft walks in the room, and they said you could have heard a pin drop. And every Patriot guy just left, including Brady. They all left. They were in the green room, and those two guys, it was very uncomfortable. And then,
wow,
for about 15 minutes, these guys were talking, and by the end of the 15 minutes and by the end of the roast, that's when Kraft saluted him and gave him a toast. And those two guys a toast because they kind of aired it out. I think the home run winner for that whole thing was Bob Kraft and Bill Belichick, because I think that thing really got ironed out right there. You couldn't do it without each other and Brady. Yeah. So those two guys, I thought it was really great to hear that those two men had buried the hatchet. I mean,
doing the shot. Yeah, doing the shot together.
Doing the shot, talking it out. I mean, hey, that's great for the relationship. You're never going to – you think you're ever going to get Michael Jordan up there on stage like that and have somebody Michael Jordan's going to be in a fist fight with somebody. Jordan's not going to be roasted like that. He's going to fight you. He's
not a chance.
Steve Kerr in the face.
Yeah, that's not happening. I agree. I give Tom Brady credit for doing it.
Me too.
But
Sundin, didn't it?
Absolutely. And I'll say this: comedians I've talked to, they have rules about the roast, believe it or not. And the number one thing, if there's one rule, it's that kids don't get mentioned. You don't talk about somebody's kids. Yep. That's it. Oh, that was violated many times over, talking about losing kids in the divorce, leaving your pregnant girlfriend, whatever. And I wasn't offended by any means, but I was just like, oh, damn. Like I was surprised that got brought into it. The Giselle stuff I was not surprised about. But Brady was up there. I noticed he absolutely laughed the hardest when it was Amendola, it was Gronk, Bill Belichick, Robert Kraft, guys like that. Guys he played with, obviously, or played for. That's when he was laughing the hardest. But yeah, it was pretty incredible, man. The whole thing.
Me know that not real money was hilarious.
Oh yeah,
the crypto thing. Me know that not real money.
Nikki Glaser was amazing. She crushed it. Absolutely crushed it.
Absolutely. Farzy, thank you, my friend. Don't forget to catch him each and every single morning. He kicks off our broadcasting right here on JAKIB Sports. Does a fabulous job. One of the credits to Philadelphia sports media is our friend Marc Farzetta. Thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you, brother. Good talking to you.
You got it. That is our friend Marc Farzetta. All right. Xander, where are we on the likes here? Help me out here on the likes. I want to get to 255. None. Hey, and wait also. 212? Come on, man. Come on now, folks. Holy cow, man. We're behind here. 212. We got to get it up to 255. 250 minimum. Let's go. Hit the like button. Keep it here, National Football Show.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.